الزور العسكري 13/12/2012. الله أكبر! الله أكبر! الله أكبر! الله أكبر! الله أكبر! الله أكبر! أخرى لعن تقطع على السيارات الجاية. خليك ملاحقة. خليك طيارة فوق معصران. من مطار نيروبي العسكري. الله أكبر الله أكبر. إذا كتيبة درع الوفاء. كتيبة درع الوفاء. الله أكبر. تقوم بعملية فجر الأحبار. كتيبة درع الوفاء. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عملية تركيب صاروخ الكوبرا المضاد للطيران.
أحد أبطال اللواء 313 يحمل صاروخ. ما هو هذا الصاروخ يا أبو جعفر؟
صاروخ كوبرا بضغط طيران.
إمتى حصلتوا عليه؟
حصلنا عليه يوم الأحد تاريخ 18/11/2012.
منين؟
من بوستار بمنطقة أتاري بحلب.
كم صاروخ غنمتم؟
100 صاروخ. بعون الله. حلب مساكن هنانا والجيش الحر يتجهز لإسقاط طائرة حربية من نوع ميج. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. 27/11/2012 تعليم ضرب صواريخ بالكوبرا.
أول أمر تفتح المؤشرات. مؤشر رقم 1 مؤشر المطاطي. 2 مؤشر يلي يعتبر هو مسافة الموجه النظري. 3
كتيبة بشار النصر تحاول إسقاط الطائرة من نوع ميج. الله أكبر والعزة لله. 13/12/2012. الله أكبر. رامي الصاروخ.
Evening to you. I'd like to start, if we can, with the news we've been getting in the last couple of hours. I know you're up to speed with it, your end too, about this plane potential incident that happened, this Nordwind plane. What do you think happened there?
Well, it's very interesting to see that I don't really think the Syrian government would attack a Russian plane. They have excellent relations. So the majorly concept which could have happened was rebel fire from missiles which could have been given by regional countries or taken from
Intentionally or by accident? I guess that's the crucial thing.
It's very hard to define whether it's intentional or by accident, but it probably would be intentional. No rebel forces would fire a missile at an aeroplane, a civilian aircraft, without it being done intentionally. There's history of rebels using anti-aircraft missiles to fire against civilian aircraft, especially in the south of Syria. So it is essentially another reprehensible act which probably would have been committed by rebel forces and should gain condemnation from all the states after it is clearer who actually committed this act. But it does show that these are not the liberal forces which the West wanted to arm in the first place, and the fact that they would even consider to attack a Russian aeroplane shows the level of barbarism, and the fact that they do not really have any conventional known forces as the Syrian army do.
And Danny, the fact that it was a Russian passenger plane on the way back from a holiday resort, the fact that it was Russian, not any other country, can we read anything into that?
Of course, yeah, Russia is a very ardent ally of the Syrian government. They have excellent strategic ties, and Russia is clearly a target, and Russian officials, Russian aircraft, they are a target by the so-called Free Syrian Army, the rebel forces, which would seek any Russian equipment or any Russian aeroplanes as a potential target in this geostrategic war. So it is very conceivable that the rebel forces would attack a Russian aircraft. They have said they will probably do it before, and Russia is not a very big ally of the rebel forces, as is very obvious. The rebel forces' biggest allies are Western countries and Arab regional countries. Because Russia supports a political solution in the Syria crisis, they would be a known target for rebel groups, for any Russian civilians or any Russian specialists inside of Syria, including aeroplanes.
And it's all really early days, as I say, we keep stressing this, but if any of this was to be proved, if it was to be proved that an airliner, a Russian one, was in fact being targeted, which we don't know, what would the ramifications potentially be?
The ramifications would be monumental. First of all, the Western countries would have to reconsider any form of support for these rebel groups and movements, especially due to the presence of Islamist groups, the alliance between Al-Nusra Front and Al-Qaeda. The fact that these groups would attack a civilian aircraft really shows these are the groups that the West want to arm. So there is a very big quandary which the West face. They are kind of paralyzed in fear with these rebel groups. If this was an attack on an American plane or a British plane, of course the media would be up in a frenzy. So we have to kind of play a game of role reversal here. If this was an aircraft carrier belonging to a Western country and was attacked by the rebel forces, we would see wide-scale kind of condemnation by Western countries for these so-called rebels. The majority of them are Islamists. So the fact that it is a Russian plane and there is a war, a geostrategic inadvertent war between the West and Russia over Syria, would make this attack very reprehensible from the point of view of Western countries. They can no longer support groups which attack civilian aircraft, and this is not just on a humanitarian level, but a political level also.
Danny, before you go, just got 30 seconds, I wanted to ask you about that bomb in Damascus targeting the Prime Minister. And this bomb went off near a school, near a kindergarten. What does it say about maybe the tactics of the rebels here?
Of course, course, this is a sign of great desperacy. They would not use car bombs and suicide bombers and attack residential areas, killing one bodyguard possibly today, if they were not desperate in the military sense. There is a changing balance of powers on the ground. The rebels are losing ground. Also, the so-called Free Syrian Army has disintegrated to an extent. The majority of armed groups inside of Syria are now the Islamists, who have the most backing, the most finance, the most power, and they are committing the reprehensible terrorist activities which are occurring in Damascus on a day-to-day basis. To attack a prime minister who is not necessarily involved in the security apparatus or the so-called military crackdown, he's a civilian leader whose main aim is to provide services to the Syrian people at a time of economic hardship. So the fact that he would be a target for rebel groups shows that these groups are essentially attacking all sorts of government officials, attacking anyone who does not agree with their so-called uprising, and attacking anyone who doesn't agree with their criminality.
Danny.
It is essentially a manifestation of the level of barbarism portrayed by these